The Gaza Strip, a small Palestinian territory located on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, has been embroiled in a bitter and bloody conflict for decades. This narrow strip of land, home to over 2 million people, has seen countless cycles of violence and suffering. Since October 2023, the situation has escalated dramatically, resulting in a devastating humanitarian catastrophe. The scale of destruction and loss has been unprecedented, leaving the population in dire need of assistance. This ongoing crisis, marked by violence, displacement, and suffering on an unimaginable scale, demands the world's attention. The images of families torn apart and communities reduced to rubble are a stark reminder of the urgent need for intervention. The international community must act decisively to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people and work towards a just and lasting peace. The efforts of aid workers and peace activists, though commendable, are not enough without a concerted global effort. The root of the conflict lies in the complex political and historical circumstances surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Decades of tension, territorial disputes, and failed peace processes have contributed to the current state of affairs. For the Palestinians living in Gaza, life under Israeli occupation has meant enduring severe restrictions on movement, economic hardship, and the constant threat of violence. The blockade imposed on Gaza has crippled its economy and left its people struggling to survive. The recent escalation of violence has only exacerbated an already dire situation, pushing Gaza to the brink of collapse. The infrastructure is in ruins, and the healthcare system is overwhelmed by the sheer number of casualties. The purpose of this essay is to shed light on the harrowing reality of the ongoing crisis in Gaza. By examining the various facets of this conflict, we aim to provide a comprehensive understanding of the challenges faced by the people of Gaza. It will examine the human cost of the conflict, focusing on the alarming number of casualties, the emotional and psychological toll on survivors, and the long-term impact on the community. The plight of innocent children, who are often the most vulnerable in such conflicts, and the widespread displacement of the Palestinian population, which has led to overcrowded refugee camps and a severe strain on resources. Furthermore, it will delve into the dire humanitarian situation, highlighting the critical shortages of essential resources such as food, water, and medical supplies, and the challenges faced by aid organizations in providing relief to those in need. The logistical difficulties and security concerns often hinder the delivery of much-needed aid. Finally, the essay will analyze the international community's response to the crisis, scrutinizing its effectiveness and the political dynamics at play, and advocating for a more robust and unified approach to resolving this long-standing conflict. Diplomatic efforts must be intensified to bring about a sustainable resolution. It is imperative that the world understands the gravity of the situation in Gaza. The images and stories coming out of the region are a call to action for all of humanity. The human suffering inflicted upon the Palestinian people is unacceptable, and the international community has a moral obligation to act. The cost of inaction is too high to ignore. By understanding the complexities of the crisis, we can begin to formulate effective solutions that address the root causes of the conflict and work towards a future where peace and justice prevail. Only through collective effort and unwavering commitment can we hope to bring an end to the suffering in Gaza. The human cost of the ongoing conflict in Gaza is staggering, with each passing day bringing more heart-wrenching stories of loss and devastation. Since the escalation of violence in October 2023, thousands of Palestinians have been killed, and tens of thousands more have been injured. The scale of the destruction is almost unimaginable. According to Relief Web, a humanitarian information portal, at least 51,000 Palestinians have been killed and 116,343 injured between October 7, 2023 and April 15, 2025. These numbers are a stark reminder of the ongoing tragedy. These figures paint a grim picture of the brutality of the conflict and the devastating impact it has had on the civilian population. The destruction is not just physical, but deeply emotional and psychological. The fighting has been particularly deadly in recent weeks, with no signs of abating. The relentless violence has left communities in ruins and families in perpetual mourning. Relief Web reports that 1,630 Palestinians have been killed since March 18, 2025, with 911 bodies retrieved during that period. The numbers are staggering and continue to rise. These numbers are disputed by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, which reports 1,200 Palestinian deaths during the same period. The discrepancy highlights the chaos and confusion on the ground. Regardless of the discrepancy, the number of casualties remains alarmingly high. Each statistic represents a life cut short, a family left in despair. The relentless bombardment and ground operations have resulted in widespread death and destruction, leaving families torn apart and communities shattered. The human suffering is beyond measure. It is important to note that these figures only represent a fraction of the true human cost of the conflict. Many more lives are affected in ways that numbers cannot capture. The long-term physical and psychological trauma inflicted upon survivors, the loss of livelihoods, and the destruction of infrastructure will continue to haunt the Palestinian people for generations to come. The scars of this conflict run deep. The international community must recognize the urgent need to address not only the immediate humanitarian crisis, but also the long-term consequences of this protracted conflict. The future of an entire generation is at stake. The statistics presented here are not mere numbers. They represent real lives lost and shattered dreams. Each figure is a testament to the human cost of this conflict. Each casualty represents a son or daughter, a mother or father, a friend or neighbor. The personal stories behind these numbers are heart-wrenching and demand our attention. The sheer scale of human suffering should shock the conscience of the world and spur immediate action to end the violence and bring about a just and lasting peace. The time to act is now. Children, the most vulnerable members of any society, have borne a disproportionate burden of the violence in Gaza. Their lives have been upended by the relentless conflict, leaving them in a state of perpetual fear and uncertainty. The United Nations estimates that at least 300 children have been killed by Israeli actions since the beginning of 2025. This staggering number highlights the severe impact of the ongoing conflict on the youngest and most innocent lives. These innocent lives, cut short by the indiscriminate nature of the conflict, represent a tragic loss of potential and a stark reminder of the human cost of war. Each child lost is a future unfulfilled, a dream shattered. Children in Gaza face a multitude of threats, from airstrikes and shelling to the psychological trauma of living in a constant state of fear. The sounds of explosions and the sight of destruction are a daily reality for them. Many have witnessed unimaginable horrors, losing loved ones, homes, and their sense of security. The emotional scars left by these experiences are deep and long-lasting. The long-term consequences of this trauma are immeasurable, potentially leading to lifelong mental health issues, educational disruptions, and a cycle of violence that is difficult to break. The psychological toll on these children is profound and far-reaching. Beyond the immediate dangers of the conflict, children in Gaza face a dire humanitarian situation. The lack of basic necessities exacerbates their suffering and hinders their development. The blockade imposed on the territory has severely restricted the flow of essential goods, including food, medicine, and educational supplies. This has created a humanitarian crisis that disproportionately affects children. As a result, many children suffer from malnutrition, preventable diseases, and limited access to education. Their health and future prospects are severely compromised. Their development and well-being are severely compromised, robbing them of the opportunity to reach their full potential. The lack of resources and support systems further exacerbates their plight. The international community has a moral obligation to protect the children of Gaza and ensure their well-being. This includes providing the necessary resources and support to help them rebuild their lives. This includes demanding an immediate end to the violence, holding perpetrators of violations against children accountable, and providing increased humanitarian assistance to meet their urgent needs. The world must come together to address this crisis. Failing to act decisively will have devastating consequences for generations to come. The future of Gaza's children depends on the actions we take today. The ongoing conflict has forced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to flee their homes in search of safety. According to ReliefWeb, as of April 9, 2025, over 401,000 Palestinians have been internally displaced within Gaza. This mass displacement, a direct consequence of the violence and destruction, has created a humanitarian crisis within a crisis. The majority of displaced Palestinians are seeking refuge in overcrowded UN-run schools, mosques, and makeshift shelters. These facilities, ill-equipped to handle the influx of people, are stretched beyond capacity, lacking adequate sanitation, privacy, and access to essential services. Living conditions in these shelters are dire, posing significant health risks, particularly to children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing medical conditions. The displacement crisis has also exacerbated existing vulnerabilities within the Palestinian population. Women and girls, for example, face increased risks of gender-based violence in overcrowded and insecure environments. The elderly and people with disabilities often lack access to essential services and support networks. The psychological impact of displacement, particularly on children, is profound and long-lasting. Addressing the needs of the displaced population is paramount. This requires providing adequate shelter, food, water, sanitation, healthcare, and psychosocial support. Furthermore, efforts must be made to ensure the safety and dignity of displaced individuals and families, particularly the most vulnerable among them. Ultimately, however, a lasting solution to the displacement crisis requires ending the violence and creating conditions conducive to the safe and dignified return of displaced Palestinians to their homes.